For many, the perception of sales is negative. But where does this perception come from? Today we have a conversation with Michelle Aquilina, CEO of Totally Smiles Group, and her opinion of this perception. Thanks, Michelle, for having this conversation with us today on the topic of sales and sales perception. In your role as a CEO of a public company, what do you think is the current perception of the sales function?
It's an interesting question because I think the connotation of sales comes with negativity, but yet regardless of whether you're in the corporate environment or whether you're in a retail environment, there's always an element of sales. Being in the corporate industry and, obviously, working my way up within the corporate environment, you never talk about sales, but yet the customer is always the focal point of where we should be. We discuss business processes, systems, refinement, financials, improvement, but yet no one talks about sales because I do think it's the connotation. But in saying that, you think when you appoint particular people, as in business development managers, relationship managers, well, what is their role? Their role is effectively sales. Being in the healthcare industry, we've got dentists, we've got dental assistants, we have a corporate environment, yet everyone within that role is essentially playing a sales role. We just don't have the skills to be able to really, when I look at it, the deficits are, we appoint these people because we think they've got the capabilities and the skills, but yet the sales component has never been trained, or there's never been a real kind of framework that actually targets how do we communicate with the customer, how do we adapt and really refine our model around our sales environment and attract that customer within our corporate environment. Dentistry is very competitive, and within that competitive environment, you always see that you have to have that sales element. You're always having to be on the forefront, but yet we never discuss it because of the connotation and the negativity associated with the sales title.
So dentistry is really interesting because you technically don't employ people with a sales title in the various centres across Australia. But is everyone in sales?
Everyone in my business and in the corporate, in the healthcare environment is in sales. But yet we've got clinicians who are, really excellent at treating symptoms and really managing patient outcomes, and their focus is on the healthcare of the individual. But yet when it comes to having to really discuss with that patient their treatment outcomes and what they could do to improve those clinical outcomes from a patient to dentist perspective, there is just no skill set. And that's why we as a corporate environment, me as a CEO, start appointing people within that environment to really support and leverage the clinicians in order for them to be able to treat clinical outcomes, but yet how can then we communicate with our customers in order to improve? Sales is not financial. Sales is a holistic approach. And when you look at sales, it's all about, well, we're selling people on good clinical outcomes. We're not selling them from a financial perspective. It's all about the health of the customer and the health of the patient. And I think that that's the most critical aspect. And I think when you link sales, you automatically think, well, how much is this person going to take away from me? From a financial perspective, not thinking about good oral health outcomes and how do we communicate that in a way to a consumer in order for them to benefit from that.
You've obviously got a challenging time ahead with Totally Smiles Group. But I have no doubt that your roadmap is going to be very, very robust. As you turn around this organisation, where do you think sales plays in that bigger scheme?
It's a really good question. And there's a combination of elements that I look at this. I look at the businesses always need to be turned around. We always need to be thinking from an entrepreneurial aspect, but also always thinking and be so attuned to the consumer environment. So whilst Totally Smiles is being turned around, there's multiple strategies that are at play in conjunction with the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is where as a leader, I have to be so attuned to what the environment is telling us and what they want. I see sales most definitely form a part of this turnaround strategy. And the way that I look at it is there's always a sales environment or a sales component. That's always been relevant within any industry, in particular within dentistry also. And when I talk about sales, it's never monetary. It's always around how do we communicate better to engage with our customers a lot better. Developing a sales framework, and whether you call it sales or whether you call it something else, it will have to form part of this turnaround strategy. There is just no question about it. As I've mentioned before, we've said that the consumers are so isolated at the moment, and they're just nurturing, we need to nurture that communication with them, not through a digital environment. That's an add-on. You know, you market them through a different channel. This is something that we're talking differently. It's about a one-on-one communication, face-to-face, over the phone. We're interacting with consumers all the time, which is such a critical component to the success of any business. And if you don't have that, you will not have a future within any organisation if you do not put the consumer, the communication, and those skills that are required to enable to be really to adapt to those personalities, because there's multiple ones out there. So from my perspective, yes, we are in turnaround. Sales, in terms of how you want to interpret that, will always form a strong component of that strategy and that turnaround plan. And it will form part of it in terms of the immediate to the medium to the long term. And in fact, you know, I look at it now, you know, I've taken on this role, I'm 4 months in, and I have been playing a sales role since I've started, but yet I haven't communicated that I'm actually within a sales role. I've been out there, I've been communicating with our practitioners, I've been communicating with our staff, and yet, you know, this is through years of skill and building up that expertise of being able to adapt to individuals. But yet I've got a team, and a very young team, that need to be nurtured and need to be skilled with that environment, because it's such a critical component. And yet we easily dismiss that. So from that perspective, yes, it will form part of the turnaround plan, and it must form part of the turnaround plan. I just need the tools or someone to help support me to help deliver that. And yet no one's thought about it. So, you know, this is where I think I need to embrace this environment. As leaders, we all need to embrace this environment, because yet it is such a gap in the market and such a critical aspect of how we run and be successful in business. But yet no one has actually thought of this sales program or curriculum.
As you progress, and I have no doubt it's going to be amazing, and whether or not after your time at Totally Smiles, you'll move on, where do you think the future of sales is? What do you think it'll look like?
I think when you think of sales, as I've said 20, 30 years ago, it's so different to what it is today. And, you know, it very much was a very linear thought process. It's sales, we're converting. It's not like that today. And as we evolve, as consumer behaviour changes, sales changes as well. So I see sales as playing a very integral role in any organisation, whether it be healthcare, retail, or the like. And it essentially will have to be integrated into our strategic frameworks. And how do we integrate that? Obviously, every organisation is bespoke in their own right, and we tailor it to the individual. But the way that I see it is very much a relationship-based sales qualification skill set, that it is about conversion. But from my perspective, it will be about outcomes, and not necessarily financial outcomes, but more around relationship outcomes, and how do we keep these consumers as a customer for life. And that will form such an integral role within any organisation moving forward. And we have to be so attuned to that and so relevant to that.
Michelle, it's been amazing talking to you today. We've learnt so much from your style and what you plan to do, and we hope that sales plays an important part of your business. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you, Vu. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm really excited because what I can see is a true opportunity within this market. And, you know, as leaders, we should most definitely embrace new opportunities because that's our role and that's our responsibility. And I am really looking forward to seeing how you can help contribute to my business and really put our employees on the forefront on how we can care for our patients.
Incredible words. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Vu.